I've tried to forget about this run. It's been over 4 years, and yet it still haunts me. I've played this game with Weedle, Caterpie, Ditto, heck, even Magikarp multiple times, and yet this Beldum run in Pokemon Emerald might be one of the worst runs I've ever tried, which is why it's taken almost 4 years for me to finally make a video on it. Now you might be wondering, J-Rose, what's so bad about Beldum? I mean, if you look at its stats, it looks fine. 300 base stats, decent defense, its attack isn't terrible, and we all know Beldum evolves into Metagross, one of the best Pokemon ever. I don't see why this Pokemon is so bad. Well, let's look at its moveset. What's that? Nothing's appearing on screen? Oh, that's not a mistake, because Beldum's moveset consists of exactly one move: Takedown. Takedown is fairly strong. It's base 90 power, but it misses a fair bit, with a 15% chance to miss anytime you use it. That's not great, but wait, it gets even better, or worse if you're me. While Takedown does damage your opponent, it is a recoil damage move, meaning a quarter of the damage you deal will be dealt right back to Beldum. It's also a normal type move, so it's resisted by types like Rock and Steel, and it's immune to Ghosts, meaning we would have to waste power points and use Struggle, which, like Takedown, deals back recoil damage. So if you're starting to see now why this run sucked so much, oh, don't you worry, it gets even worse. But first, I want to talk about a recent RPG that I've been playing on mobile, and it's also available on PC. It's an RPG with tons of customization and strategy that I've actually found pretty challenging. There's dozens of modes, difficult boss battles, and the ability to play against the computer and against other people. It needs no introduction, the one and only Raid Shadow Legends. Let me be clear, all the footage you're seeing is actually my own gameplay, and I'm one of 5 million people who've been playing Raid, which is celebrating its 5-year anniversary. By using the link in my description or scanning the QR code, you can actually get a ton of cool bonuses, which, to be honest, I wish I had because they're really helpful. This includes Lady Atessa, who is epic ranked, which is super rare, 500,000 in silver, which can be used to upgrade your equipment, and more things valued at over $100. Additionally, once you reach level 25, you'll get skill tomes, which are super useful, potions, and another 500,000 in silver. But if you download using my link and use the festive promo code Festival5, you'll get another epic champion, Tyrell, 500,000 in silver, and a lot of other rewards, which frankly, I wish I had. Raid has a lot of other really cool features, including Curse City, which takes 100 stages to complete and you need to take down 2 bosses at the same time. A new, even more powerful rarity of champion, the Mythical Champion, and the ability to battle other players' teams in live arena, which I've really enjoyed. Honestly, guys, I've genuinely had a good time playing Raid Shadow Legends, and if you want to join me in the game, you can find me under the nickname JRose11, and I even have my own clan, the Solo Runners, where we can complete missions together, including taking down clan bosses. To get those awesome rewards, click my link in the description or pinned comment, scan the QR code, and I hope to see you on the battlefield. Now, let's face it. Even though Beldum is Steel type, it's still going to have a very hard time versus Roxanne, so I decided to go to Route 103, both to level up Beldum, as well as EV training it in attack and speed by knocking out Zigzagoon and Wingull for speed, and Poochyena for attack. I realized I also could use a Pokemon to fly around, so what better than a frickin' full odds shiny Wingull? What is this, like the 7th shiny I found during these runs? It's crazy. But I worry this happiness will be short-lived, because even though our level is fairly high and we're even EV trained a little bit, will that be enough to make Roxanne not awful? Why, yes. Yes, it would, but with some pretty crazy luck. The first thing to mention here is we are not using Takedown, but rather Struggle, because Struggle is a typeless move, meaning it does neutral damage. So even though it's almost half as powerful as Takedown, it has perfect accuracy, and it's a little bit more powerful against not very effective Pokemon. We also get 2 critical hits against the 2 Geodudes, which I do think matter, but then Nose Pass is pretty annoying. Now, I've since discovered that the way this Nose Pass's AI works is if you're faster, it's going to prefer or almost always use a Rock Tomb. And even though I resist it, because I knocked out those Geodudes quickly, the Nosepass has potions and berries to give it 50 more HP than it otherwise should have. Plus, I'm taking back recoil damage, which is doing quite a bit. Thankfully though, because I am so overleveled, I do eventually persevere and get by Roxanne without too many issues. In real time, it took me just over 2 hours to get past Roxanne, and when you consider I'm using a Pokemon that just knows Takedown, that's not that bad. I decide to go battle Brawly second, even though he can be skipped, because I figured at level 25, we should be good enough to beat him. Takedown one-shots Machop, and it knocks out Meditite as well. The final Pokemon is Makuhita, which does have pretty high HP. But thankfully, Takedown knocks it out, and we had 18 HP to spare. We didn't even start with full HP. Pretty good. Rival 2 is often a really big sticking point in Pokemon Emerald runs, but it's not going to be so for Beldum. We don't even have full HP, but the thing is, since Rival 2 doesn't have any Steel or Rock Pokemon, and we also don't get flame-bodied by the Slugma, we're almost able to knock out all 3 of her Pokemon in one hit. Truth is, if Mudshot had hit, that may have been pretty close, but it didn't, and that means we can move on to Watson. He would be a little more annoying in Ruby and Sapphire with both the Magnemite and Magneton, but he's still going to be pretty difficult in this game with 4 Pokemon instead of 3. There are a ton of trainers around Marvel City though, so I have been leveling up and I'm at level 35. I one-shot Voltorb, I'm not paralyzed, that's good. I'm not surprised I one-shot Electrike, thankfully we haven't been getting misses, and I'm not staticked, very good. Magneton, however, is going to be a 3-shot and it does paralyze me. Then it hits me with Shockwave, and now it's going to heal with the Super Potion, and this is going to be a huge problem because we're slowly knocking ourselves out with recoil, and that second takedown after the heal is enough to knock me out. On my third battle versus Watson, we get the KO versus Voltorb just like the first time. We knock out the Electrike, but this time something cool happens, we get a critical hit. It's a 1 in 16 chance. I probably should have equipped the Cherry Berry, but hopefully it won't matter. We nearly one-shot Manectric with a single takedown. Thankfully, it didn't go for Shockwave turn 1, but we're not so lucky turn 2, and it does knock us out. So this is going to be a bit of a problem. We might need to one-shot Manectric. By this point, I'd run out of trainers, so I was just battling Watson over and over again, trying to gain experience points. But there was a bad thing that happened. You see, because I'd been battling Watson and I didn't have a lot of Cherry Berries, I actually ran out. So while I can knock out his first 2 Pokemon reliably, Magneton invariably hit me with Thunder Wave, and I didn't have a Cherry Berry, which would have been helpful. However, we do get the critical hit, meaning Magneton didn't heal, which was absolutely massive. And while we are paralyzed, Manectric chooses to howl a second time, and finally at level 38, we had a chance to one-shot, and we did. And so while it took me about an hour, and I needed a clutch critical hit, because it wasn't just that we got the critical hit versus Magneton, it's that the second hit was a critical hit, so it didn't heal. Very lucky battle, to be honest, and I don't think the 4th gym leader, Flannery, is going to be any easier, considering if we don't one-shot her Torkoal, Overheat is going to absolutely obliterate me. I'm not looking forward to this. Now, I actually forgot to heal in this very first battle, but I'm at level 43, so I just kind of wanted to see how things would go. Unsurprisingly, we knock out Numel and Slugma, no problem. Then out comes Camerupt, and we knock it also out without any issue in one shot. Torkoal, however, we don't one-shot, not even close. That said, at least we do over 50%, so as long as Overheat misses, which it has a 10% chance to do, or we maybe get a critical hit, we can beat Flannery. But unfortunately, I don't really see any other alternative. As it would turn out though, things didn't go quite as well in every battle as they did in that first battle, because in addition to Torkoal being at least a 2-hit KO without a crit, Camerupt without a favorable damage range was also a 2-hit KO, and that was a problem because its Overheat was just as deadly to Beldum. So we need to level up a little bit, which is a little annoying, but not the end of the world. After leveling up just one level higher, we were ready. We're at level 45, we're at full HP, we knock out Nummel, we knock out Slugma, we knock out Camerupt, and with 62 HP, we just need a critical hit or a miss, and we get the critical hit. It's kind of unfortunate we need to rely on luck here, but that's what happens when you have just one move. This didn't take too long, only about 15 minutes. And the truth is, our reward here is to go from a fairly difficult gym leader in Flannery to a gym leader that might be kind of easy-ish in Norman, since we are a steel type which resists normal type attacks. After battling every remaining trainer I could, I go to battle Norman and I'm at level 47. Takedown, the accuracy's been good so far. We knock out Spinda. Vigoroth, however, we don't knock out. Feint Attack doesn't do much, but here's a bit of a problem. Hyper Potion means we're going to take double recoil damage. That leaves us at 48 HP for slacking. And it's going to be at least a 3-hit KO versus slacking. It also does no counter, which it doesn't use often, but it did use here, resulting in our first loss. Our second battle didn't go all that much better. Unfortunately, the recoil damage just proved to be far too much. Even without counter, we didn't even get past slacking, let alone the final Pokemon, Lanoon. I tried just one more battle to see if things would go kind of well. I did get confused, which sucked, but I did also knock out Vigoroth in one hit, which means no Hyper Potion. We did inevitably knock out Slacking because it has a Citrus Berry, meaning it didn't heal. However, by the time I got to Lanoon, even though I'm able to knock it out in one hit, I don't have enough HP for the recoil damage. But if you notice, just like with Watson, we are using Norman to level up our Pokemon. There aren't any more trainers and fighting wild Pokemon takes too long, so by knocking out these fairly strong Pokemon, maybe we win, but if we don't, we're gaining experience points, which should make the range versus Vigoroth better, and hopefully we two-shot slacking, but that may require a critical hit. Well, after battling countless times and losing, we're at level 49. We one-shot Spinda just like we've done every other time, and Vigoroth we now one-shot pretty reliably, meaning no Hyper Potion, meaning 83 HP for slacking. Takedown isn't quite doing half, it goes for Yawn. A critical hit here would have been nice, but we're put to sleep. I should have equipped Chesto Berry, but thankfully slacking goes for Yawn and Yawn. So while we stay asleep the maximum number of turns, the slacking never attacked us, which is pretty darn lucky. And then Lanoon we know we're going to one-shot. Between the 3 Yawns and no misses with Takedown, I'd say that battle went really well, and we still barely had enough HP. Only 19, so if slacking would have healed with a Hyper Potion, we wouldn't have been able to do this. But we've made it through the first half of the game, well, technically a little bit more, but I've always seen getting Surf as the transition to the second half. We now have to battle Winona, a 2 versus 1 in Tate and Liza, and then finally, Juan. Alrighty, so Winona is next. She leads with Swablu. Again, this is just a scouting battle, so I'm not at full HP. We knock out the Swablu in one hit, but not the Altaria. I'm not entirely surprised by this, but thankfully the Oran Berry, I don't know why it doesn't have a Citrus Berry, but that's good, allows me to knock it out without it healing, but I'm only at 44 HP. And so after not one-shotting the Tropius, Winona heals, and I just simply don't have enough HP. Now, there's really no need to battle Winona right away. You can head all the way to Lily Cove City. There are tons of trainers. There's a ton you can do. There's simply no need here to rush this. We can just battle when we're ready. By the time we've done everything and we come back to Winona's gym, we're all the way at level 62. We still one-shot Swablu. The question is, do we one-shot Altaria? The answer is yes. 108 HP. Very good. Tropius, we didn't one-shot last time. We do this time. 83 HP. Very good. But now out comes Skarmory, and it's going to be a 3-shot. It goes for Steel Wing. Once again, our accuracy has been pretty good so far, but unfortunately, it doesn't seem to matter. Even after we get our first and then second misses back-to-back, it's abundantly clear we just don't have enough HP to knock out all 5 Pokemon. In fact, after that crit, we don't even have enough for Skarmory. It took quite a few more battles to actually beat Winona, and as it would turn out, Altaria was actually a range, which is very annoying. as you can see in this battle right here. But in the next battle, we get the range. Tropius wasn't a range, but Skarmory, we actually get good luck in that it gets a boost to its defense via Steel Wing. That changes it from a 3-hit KO, but it goes into healing range, to a 3-hit KO where it never goes into healing range, and that's going to give me way more HP. Enough that a single takedown will knock out Pelipper with 32 hit points to spare. So as you can see, a huge part of my strategy, if we can call it that, is to make sure we're never in situations where the Pokemon is going to heal, because the recoil damage is just so extreme. That ends up being what knocks me out. While I did consider potentially manipulating my power points to use Struggle versus Skarmory, in the end, the defense boost worked, and a win is a win. The fact that Winona was this difficult is not a good sign, because almost always in these solo runs, Tate and Liza are pretty impossible, because while the game is anticipating you play it 2-on-2, we of course have to play it for the most part 2-on-1. We are almost 20 hours into this playthrough by the time we fight Tate and Liza for the first time. And you can see I'm just using a useless level 5 Magikarp. I use Takedown on Xatu because it is a 1-hit KO, and the Magikarp will gain some experience points, which actually really isn't ideal. Keep in mind, this is one of the first times I'd done a solo run in Emerald, so I really wasn't sure what the ruling would be for the other Pokemon in this Tate and Liza battle, so I had to figure out whether Magikarp gaining experience points would violate the spirit of my rules or not, which I've since decided is completely fine. As I was talking, you'll notice not only did I knock out my own Magikarp, which was silly, but I only do about half damage to Claydol, which I didn't like. So there are so many trainers in the water here, I decided to level up a little bit more, and decided to give a very important Pokemon a little bit of a cameo. Now at level 71, I have the shiny level 2 Wingull I got back in the early part of the game, and I get a critical hit and knock out Claydol, which is pretty lucky. And this means that yes, the Wingull is going to gain a bunch of experience points, but Xatu will target it with Psychic, which is good. I then miss with Takedown, which was bound to happen eventually, and unfortunately I get confused and Sunny Day, which means Flamethrower is coming. I hit myself in confusion, Calm Mind, and there's Flamethrower, and it knocks me out due to the Solrock's critical hit, so what goes around comes around a little bit. So we have to battle again. Now I want to be clear, the reason I'm using Wingull here is because it's shiny and I'm proud of it, but the truth is it did actually change what Claydol did. I realized Claydol isn't going for Earthquake, which is really bad, because it doesn't want to do nothing to Wingull, and so we're kind of manipulating what the AI is doing. But again, this wasn't really intentional, and truth be told, if I just used Magikarp, this probably would have gone better anyway. But in this battle, we do one-shot the Xatu, and unfortunately, although I did this earlier, I was meant to have run out of power points for Takedown. You'll also notice I have the Shell Bell here. This does counteract some of the recoil damage, which isn't going to matter if Solrock keeps getting critical hits. So after leveling up a little bit more and realizing what was going on with the AI, I go back to Magikarp to get a less favorable matchup, but one that's more indicative of what should happen. And so I am going to be hit by Earthquake, but again, this just feels fair to me. And I should have had 3 takedowns instead of 2. I'm not really sure what I was doing here, but I realized an even bigger problem. Not only is Struggle not a 2-hit KO versus Solrock, but worse yet, I cannot select which Pokemon I wish to target with Struggle. The game seemingly chooses at random. There are very few moves that work this way, but Struggle is apparently one of them. So even if I did have 3 power points of Takedown and knocked out Xatu, it would still be a 50-50 chance if I hit Solrock or Lunatone, and we really want to hit Solrock because of Sunny Day and Flamethrower. Unfortunately for me, the solution to this quote-unquote puzzle was not going to be quick. We had to level up a ton. We're at level 86. At level 86, we one-shot Claydol, meaning its Earthquake won't hit us. Magikarp's going to gain experience that cannot be helped, and Xatu will knock it out with Psychic. Perfect. But at level 86, not only do we knock out Claydol in one hit, if we get a critical hit, we also knock out Solrock, which is the Pokemon that's the most threatening. And that's why we had to use Takedown as opposed to Struggle, because I had to make sure Solrock's Flamethrower couldn't be used. Lunatone can't do all that much to me, and Xatu really can't do anything to me, So once we've knocked out the Soul Rock, barring some crazy luck, which thankfully doesn't happen, we're able to win. But it's not a good sign that I only have 14 levels to spare at Gym 7. Like, I know it's a 2-on-1, and it is difficult, but it's not as if we won handily. We only had about a quarter of our HP left, and that's with the Shell Bell, which restores 1/8 of the damage I deal to my HP, or in other words, cuts the recoil damage in half, from 1/4 to 1/8, which is pretty good. Usually I consider Shell Bell to be a poor man's leftovers, but in this case it's actually a better leftovers. But it's still not giving me HP, it's just decreasing how much I'm going to lose. There wasn't that much to do before I battle Juan, the final gym leader, and I'm at level 87. He leads with Love Disc, and I easily dispatch it. Next comes out Whiscash, I miss, it goes for Amnesia, the next takedown does the job. I also knock out Celio in one hit, and you can just see how much the Shell Bell is really helping out here. Crawdaunt I knock out in one hit, and that's going to lead to the final Pokemon, Kingdra. We don't knock it out in one hit, which is annoying, and it goes for Double Team, which sucks, because unlike Smokescreen, that is going to affect us. But we do hit with our next takedown. He unfortunately has another Hyper Potion, and then we miss. We miss a second time, Double Team, so things are getting a little scary. We miss a third time, another Double Team. We miss a fourth straight time, another Double Team. We miss a fifth straight time, we get confused via Water Pulse, and it looks like the Double Teams are just going to be too much for Beldum, and somewhat shockingly, a Kingdra half our level has defeated us. Of course, in the very next battle, we win pretty easily. I'm just going to skip ahead till we get to the Kingdra. All that had to happen here is, well, we got a critical hit. Having to rely on a move like Takedown that misses so much is definitely really frustrating, but at the very least we can say Beldum has beaten the 8 Hoenn gyms. The only question remaining is whether it can beat the Elite Four, Wallace, and Steven maybe? Well, let's not get ahead of ourselves. First, I do battle Wally, and the only reason I want to bring up this battle is simply to show you how difficult this run is without Shell Bell. Without Shell Bell, even with pretty good luck, we only have 21 HP remaining, and unlike Wallace, Wally's Pokemon are not only lower level, but he doesn't have 6 of them, on top of other problems we're going to have with Wallace. We still have a little bit of leeway before we hit level 100, but emphasis on the little. There's not much remaining. With that said, I'm at level 90. We're going to attempt Sydney, the first Elite Four member, and we're going to see how far we get and what we might need to do. But the truth of the matter is, it's not like there are many strategies I can use here. So Sydney's first Pokemon, Mightyena, Intimidate doesn't work due to Clear Body. Takedown does knock out Mightyena in one hit, which is pretty good. It also knocks out Shiftry in one hit. Next comes out the Cacturn, we knock it out in one hit. Crawdaunt is the first Pokemon which we don't knock out in one hit, and we get the full restore, which as we've talked about, isn't ideal, but we have more than enough hit points remaining to knock out the Crawdaunt, and then finally the Absol, and we level up to level 91. Not bad, but something even better happened in that battle, where I just randomly guessed how many takedowns I should bring into the battle. Because our next battle versus Phoebe, we're going to need to use Struggle versus her Ghost-type Pokemon. And I pretty much was exactly right, so that's pretty cool. But Struggle is quite a bit less powerful than Takedown. It might take 2 or 3 hits to knock out some of the Dusclops, and they do have Curse and other annoying things. This battle might be pretty tricky. Alright, well, all I can do is press A. It's just Struggle at this point. And we do knock out Dusclops with a crit, meaning at worst it's a 2-hit KO. Next comes out the second Dusclops, and it isn't quite a 2-hit KO here. The good news is this Dusclops does have a Citrus Berry, which will heal it instead of a full restore, which means less recoil damage, but we're at just 92 HP after 2 Pokemon knocked out. Struggle also doesn't one-shot Banette. It goes for Grudge, which is completely useless because I'm already out of power points. But we might run out of HP even if we one-shot everything, which we don't. Sableye goes for Double Team. Struggle can miss, but thankfully it doesn't. And actually, things are looking kind of good as long as Banette doesn't get like a crit or something here. Or so I thought. because Shadow Ball did just enough that I probably needed like 10 more HP to beat Banette, but unfortunately, we didn't have it, and this is a good reason to just do these battles at level 100. We would have won, the second Dusclops would have been a 2-hit KO, we would have easily had enough HP, but it's getting really scary, no pun intended, how much recoil damage I'm taking back. I'm starting to wonder if this is going to be possible. So I didn't waste any more time and just got myself to level 100. The first Dusclops is a 2-hit KO, so that's good, but the second Dusclops will not be a 2-hit KO, and in fact I deal so much damage after Citrus Berry it's going to heal, so that means we're going to be at just 93 HP for Banette. It's still not a one-shot, and it goes for Grudge, which is fine. We knock it out. Sableye, still not a one-shot, so in the end, it turns out level 100 wasn't enough, and in fact, I didn't have enough HP to knock out the second Banette. Thankfully, it wouldn't take me too much longer to beat Phoebe. We already know Dusclops number 1's a 2-hit KO, and Dusclops number 2 is still going to be a 4-hit KO. Thankfully, that's it, and you know, the fact it's a 4-hit KO is actually pretty good. The first Banette still goes for Grudge, and now I had a feeling I need a critical hit, but it turns out we actually don't. The key to this battle was Sableye not attacking us, and because Sableye didn't attack us, we had just 12 HP, well 15 after the Shell Bell, remaining to beat Phoebe. So that's close, and it's not a good sign that with 5 Pokemon we have 15 HP to go, but we did have to use Struggle here. Hopefully by switching back to Takedown, we'll be able to knock out the Pokemon before they're able to heal, but I don't know. So next comes out Glacia. She leads with Celio, and Takedown does do enough to knock out Celio. That's pretty good. We have 218 HP. She sends out Walrein. That's early for your ace, and thankfully Walrein is perfect, where we don't knock it out in one hit, but the Citrus Berry is going to heal Walrein enough that it's not going to heal. But unfortunately, we do get a couple Takedown misses. I don't reset because I still want to know if we knock out the Glalie in one hit, and the answer is yes. So we can't get any Takedown misses. Obviously, that's just going to be something that we have to deal with in all these battles going forward. It's frustrating stuff, I'm not going to lie to you. The fact of the matter is, at the very least, it would take 6 or 7 takedowns to knock out these Pokemon. And in the next battle, I get really close. I make it all the way to the final Celio. But unfortunately, after Hail, we don't have enough HP. We probably wouldn't have before. It only took about 3 more losses till I finally got a win, and all we really needed is no misses at really unclutch times, including against the Walrein. We do get a miss versus Glalie, but that's okay. Glalie is probably the least scary Pokemon she has. Well, I don't know, they're all kind of not so scary, but the second Glalie's equally not scary, and we had 73 HP for Celio number 2, and as it would turn out, we'd need about 40 HP to knock out Celio, or we'd knock ourselves out due to recoil damage, but that's fine. What wasn't fine was Drake. Drake ended up being extremely difficult, and the thing is with this video, and the big reason I didn't want to make it, is it's very hard for me to come up with strategies here. I mean, I alternate between Struggle and Takedown, and I kind of just keep playing until I get critical hits. But the truth is, when you have one move, it's can this work or can't this work? Drake leads with Shelgon, which is pretty bulky, and it's going to withstand a takedown. Rock Tomb is fine. See, the AI just simply doesn't understand I have Clear Body, so it's trying to lower my stats where it can't. That's fine. The next Pokemon it sends out is Flygon. Now, we can't get a miss here, but unfortunately, we also can't get a one-shot here. It was close, but I'm not sure if it was even a range, so in the next battle, I use Silk Scarf. With Silk Scarf, I'm not going to get the healing, but I do one-shot Shelgon, and that means I'm going to one-shot Flygon. But here's the problem. I'm losing so much more HP, will we even have enough left? I mean, what if we don't one-shot Salamence, which of course we don't? It hits us with Flamethrower and we're done. I mean, the burn really sucks, but even without the burn, it wasn't going to matter. This is another issue. Because we have a recoil damage move, I'm pretty limited on my choice of items, since without the Shell Bell, the recoil damage alone is enough to knock me out. all I can do is keep battling Drake, and for now, I'm gonna stick with the Silk Scarf strategy because damage is very important. For the record, that boosts my normal moves by 10%, and I'm hoping for a critical hit or something. I actually got a couple burns, but finally, I get past Salamence. Now, I know I'm gonna lose here. I was curious whether this would one-shot Kingdra, and it doesn't even do that. So, Silk Scarf helps a little bit, but it feels like we're giving up way too much, but I just don't know what we're gonna do. All I can do is just battle again and again and hope for different results. But the truth of the matter is, without getting a clutch critical hit on Salamence or something, we simply don't have enough HP, although I did learn that Kingdra was a range with Silk Scarf, so that's nice, I guess. I ended up battling Drake over 100 times, and finally, we got a victory. How? Well, as it turns out, we need the Silk Scarf. Flygon was just too inconsistent without it, so we're not going to get that recoil reduction, but it is possible without Shell Bell. What we need, however, is a critical hit on Salamence, and that's what we get here. Now it's not done. Critical hit on Salamence is great, but we then need the range on Kingdra. We get a crit, so that works too. And after all that, Altaria was also a range. We don't need the critical hit there. But all in all, I remember calculating the odds of victory at about 1%, which makes sense since I battled 100 times. So the odds lined up with reality. Okay, we have beaten the Elite Four, but now we have to beat the champion. The good news is, other than Whiscash, none of Wallace's Pokemon really have the ability to hit me for super effective damage. The bad news is literally everything else. So Wallace leads with Wailord, which has incredibly high HP, which means we're going to deal back to ourselves an incredible amount of recoil damage. And there's a problem. I forgot to equip Shell Bell, and it turns out even with Silk Scarf, it's a range to knock out Wailord. We ended up being at 78 HP for the remaining 5 Pokemon, and that just simply isn't going to work. There's just no way to use Silk Scarf here. I'd love to, but we're going to have to use Shell Bell. If you do the math, there's no mathematical way Beldum can knock out these 6 Pokemon and have enough HP remaining, even if it's never attacked. All I did is add all 6 of their HP and then divide it by 4, which is the recoil amount. And it seems like I'd need at least 303 or 304 HP to be able to knock all these guys out. And that doesn't account for full restores, of which Wallace has 4. Even with the Shell Bell, assuming Wallace doesn't heal and we're never attacked, that's still 151.375, so I guess 152. I'm not really sure how the rounding would work, but you see what I mean? We would only have 80 HP remaining if we were never attacked and nothing healed, but that's not what's happening. We're not one-shotting everything unless we get constant critical hits. And I did this battle again and again and again, and there was a realization that was setting in. I messed up. I screwed up. My math was wrong. And the reasoning was infuriating. All my calculations were done holding Silk Scarf. And with Silk Scarf and Shell Bell, this would be possible. Not easy, but possible. But the problem is, you can't have both. If Beldum had a move that didn't deal recoil damage, this would be possible. But as it would turn out, if you want to beat Wallace, here's a way that can happen. With our current Beldum, we need a critical hit on Wailord. You'll see that save snapshot 1. That's me setting up a save state in order to prove how this would theoretically be possible. Now, if we don't critical hit Whiscash, it can go for Amnesia and then it heals. We now don't have enough HP. We now will run out of HP. So we need a second critical hit on Whiscash. Okay? So if we get that second critical hit on Whiscash, so remember, that is 6.25% times 6.25%, which is insanely unlikely, but it gets worse. Now out comes Gyarados. Gyarados also isn't a one-shot. And we don't have enough HP for Gyarados to attack us, so again, we need a critical hit. Thankfully, Tentacruel, we don't need a critical hit, but we got one. So we're at 133 HP for Ludicolo. Now, if you thought, well, now you don't need critical hits anymore, you're wrong because all those potions still get used. And if we don't get any critical hits, we simply don't have enough HP for Milotic, which can knock us out with Surf. So as it turns out, you need critical hits against pretty much every single Pokemon. Every single Pokemon. Remember the order of operations in Pokemon. Your recoil damage is subtracted before Shell Bell activates. So we only had 62 HP remaining when we knocked out Milotic. That means we only had one additional attack, maybe two depending on the Pokemon, before we would lose. And that's assuming they never attack us. The chances of that actually happening are infinitesimal. I submit to you that in Generation 3, in Pokemon Emerald, and likely in Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire as well, it is impossible to beat the game with Beldum. When this happened 4 years ago, I was furious. I had spent over 30 hours on this challenge, only to have it end in failure. I messed up. I got the math wrong. Surely I couldn't release this. But I've come to realize that it's kind of boring. When every Pokemon, no matter how weak you think it is, I realize now it's important to talk about the Pokemon that for whatever reason simply cannot, at least not in a practical sense. In Emerald, probably Ruby and Sapphire, and very likely in Fire Red and Leaf Green, Beldum is one of those Pokemon, and I can't really see any way around it. Thank you guys, though, for finally getting to see this absolutely miserable experience I had 4 years ago. I hope it was worth the wait, and I'll see you all in a few days with another video. Take care.